Okay. So we were seeing OOPS concept, right? What is polymorphism, how to create a class and abstraction, encapsulation, everything. So let's see one project which explains, which has all the features in it, all the OOPS concept in it, so that we will get to know how in real world OOPS is used by Python. Okay. So let's create a library management system. Okay. So let me explain the requirement of the project. So we will be having a library management system, and here uh, we will allow user to borrow and return books, and we keep track of available books, how many books we have on that particular author, and we support multiple user. It's not just one user will be borrowing and returning. There will be multiple user. They will borrow different books and return it. And we also support different types of book like fiction, non-fiction, all the categories. And we have to have different roles. One is admin, who can check the book and who can allow the others to borrow, and the other is the members, like the user who is going to borrow and return the book, the members of the library. Okay. So our program should do handle all this. Okay. So let's first create a book class, okay, where you can add multiple books. So to create a class, what should I write now here? How do I create a class book?
Yeah, class book.
Okay. Okay. And inside any class, what is the must? The one method which is must.
Unit.
Okay. So I'll create a init method. One is, we know the class should always be in lowercase and your class name should start with capital name. And init is a dunder method, a special method. So you will have underscore before and after. And every method inside the class should have self, right? The first keyword should be self. And then here I have title and author. What is the title of the book and what is the author? So this is how I set the variable also. When I get title, I'll give self.title is equal to title. And here you see is available is not, I'm not getting it from the user. Whenever you create a book instance using this class, whenever you create an object, okay, what you would do, you will call this class and you will pass these parameters, right? So here I have not given is available, but I'm having another variable which I'm not letting user to pass. So this is called encapsulation. This is a private attribute. I'm not letting anyone know because I'm not accepting it from the user. So they will not know that there is a variable called as available. Only the admin will know whether that particular book is available or not. Whenever we create a new book, we make it true that it is available. Okay. And then, so what all we have to do? We have to allow user to borrow the book and return it. Initially, they will get it from us, then they will return it back to us. Correct. So, so here I'm creating a borrow method where um if it is available, I will let the user to borrow it. If it's not available, we will not let them to borrow, right? We will not let them know that that particular book is available. So if it is available, I'm having a if condition of this is available. Okay. If it is available, I'm making it false initially because I'm going to give to a person. So I'm making it false initially. And then return true. Return true is nothing but it is going to return to the calling method. Okay, that's all we are going to making it false. If it's not available at all, then we are going to return false. We are going to tell them that that particular book is not available. You will understand the return true and false when we execute it. Okay, then the user should return the book to us, right? So I'm just going to write a simple method, return book, where I'm making that particular book available. Okay, when the user return to us, it is available now with the library, and we will see now another danda method. Okay, this is another danda method which will have double underscore. Okay, it's called str. This is just for the display purpose. uh, so when you want to display something about your object, then you will go for this method. Okay, here I'm just going to display that particular title by this author is available, or it is already borrowed. If it's not available, you will mention that it's already borrowed. Okay.
Ma'am, can you please make your screen little bit zoom in or make larger?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Scroll up, ma'am. Can you please scroll up? Yeah.
Is it fine
Continue.
now?
Yes.
Okay. So here we saw the init method, which is used to create an object, different books using this class, and each book will be borrowed and returned, right? Another method what we saw is another special method, danda method, str. Str is just for displaying purpose. Okay. So here you're going to tell that this particular title is available. This particular title by this particular author is available or not. Okay. Here I'm if it is I'm having a if condition. If it is available, I will tell available, else borrowed. Okay. This is the way you can write if inside a print statement, like how we write lambda. We can create a function, right? Lambda, we can mention lambda and we'll be having a for loop. Similarly, you can write if it is available, you have to write your if it is available, what you want to tell, that you have to do it on the left side. Else, what you want to tell, it will be on the right side. Okay. This is a method. This is a class we are going to write for book. Okay. Let me run this. Okay. Now, the keep track of available book is done, right? We have created a book using which this class you can create a book, you can make the book available or unavailable. Now we are going to support multiple user. So a library system can create multiple user, and to create multiple user, we have to create a simple class template using which you can create n number of user, right? So what the user will you will have a name for the user, and you will mention how many books that particular user borrowed and how many he has returned. Okay, this is the only thing we have to track with the user. So we are creating a class user, and we have a simple init method where we are giving name. Okay, and we are going to track of what all the books he borrowed and how many books he has returned. Okay, so here I have another method, borrow book, and here what is a book he has borrowed. Okay, if if he has borrowed this book, this particular book, then what we are going to do is book dot borrow is nothing but this. Okay, if he has a book and he has borrowed book dot borrowed, then if book dot borrow, then we will mention what is the book he has borrowed. That particular book we will be adding it to this list. So I'm creating a list, empty list. Okay, and later if he has borrowed a book, we will be adding that book name into the list. A user can borrow multiple books, so we have a list here. Okay, and we are going to tell what all the book he has borrowed. Okay, and similarly, if he has returned the book, we have to keep track of what all the books he has returned. So I'm creating another method, return books. Okay, and if he has if the book is borrowed, okay, it's among the borrowed books. If the list is having a book, if that particular list is having the book, is nothing but he has borrowed a book, right? So we mentioned that return the book. Okay, and if he's returned, we will remove it from this borrowed book. There is a list where we initially add the book name whenever he borrows, and later when he returns the book, we remove that particular book. Okay, he might have multiple book, A, B, C. So I will mention the book name. Whatever he is returning, that particular book I'll be removing from the list. So the remaining books alone will be there in the list. Okay. And we just have a simple print statement so that it's clear when the action is performed. And we also have a display method. So here we will tell what all the book he has borrowed. User and the username. Borrowed books. I have a for loop here for all the book in the list. Borrowed books. I'll be displaying the book title. Okay. Now here with this class, we will be managing user. You can create multiple user and you can make the user to borrow and return the book. So let me run this. Okay, we have book and user. So now we have to create admin. This is a normal user, the members. Okay, member. Similarly, we have to create admin. Then what we have to do? We have to keep track of available books. We will be creating a library management. Okay. So before that, let me create some book and user object, okay, to test our classes. Let me create one book. So here, I'm using the book class book name, okay, and what I'll have to pass title and author. So I have the title and the author. So my object name is book one. Okay, let me create this. Now I wanted to create another book. Similarly, I'm giving the author and the title and creating book two. Okay. Now similarly, I wanted to create user. So what data I have to give while creating a user?
Name.
Okay. I have to give class name here, and in the parentheses I have to give some name. Okay. And here I have to give a object name when I create a user. So I'll just give user one. So we have created books and user. Okay. So let me do one thing. I will make that particular user to borrow a book. Okay. So this is my object. If this user wanted to borrow a book, which method should I use?
Borrow book.
Okay.
User
How
dot
do I
borrow.
use that?
User dot.
User one. No. So
Okay.
whenever you have created an object, you need not use a class name. Okay, you can directly use your object and you can give the method name. So like similarly how I said, whenever you create a list one, here this is your object name, correct? And you're creating a list using some class was implemented, okay? And the class name is just the open and close bracket. So you are giving the parameters. It accepts n number of parameter. You're creating a list. And whenever you create a list, you want to use one of the method, the list has. What you will do, list one dot count, right? Count is one of the method the list class has. You will use your object name, whatever the date variable you have given, and then you will give dot count. Similarly, user one dot the method, one of the method you wanted to use. So your object dot method name. Always whenever you call a method, it will be object name dot method name. Okay. Only when you call particular class attribute, which is an attribute which is created inside the class but not inside the method. When you want to call that, you have to use a class name. Otherwise, all the method you can call using your object name. So I'll give borrow book, and what all the parameter I have to pass. What is the method? I'm going to use borrow book method.
A book name.
Okay. So here I'm not getting book name. I'm not getting name or title, but I'm just getting the book directly. The book itself. Okay. The book itself. So I'll be passing the object name itself directly here. Okay. Let me run this. So what it is telling when I call this borrow book, it is adding a book to the self-load borrowed books. Okay. And it is going to print that particular user has borrowed this particular book title. Okay. So the title is this and username is this. Okay. And okay, let me do one thing. I'll create another user. Before creating user, let me try to print this borrowed books. So this particular parameter, I want to see what is there inside it. Okay, it is a list object. So let me convert it into the list. It's nothing but list, right? If you want to print the list, you have to convert that particular into list. Mm, why this is not printing? Okay. Okay, I'll check why this is printing. Let's see that towards the end. Let me cut this. Okay. So we have borrowed a book, and let me do one thing. I'll create another user two. Okay. A user is created. Now I wanted to make this user to borrow the same book. Okay. What is that book one? Book one is nothing but Python crash course, which is already borrowed. So here I tell, sorry, Python crash course is already borrowed because how it keeps track of it, um, it is checking whether that, okay. So it is checking whether book.borrow, whether it is already, so what we are doing book.borrow, this borrow, whether it is calling book.borrow and if means it is going to tell true or false, correct? If it is true, it is going to allow let this happen. If it is false, it is going to print this. Okay. So what is book.borrow is going to do? Book.borrow is nothing but book.borrow. It is checking if it is available. Okay. If it is available, it is going to return true. Otherwise, it is going to return false. Okay. In our case, what happened? The book is already borrowed by user one, so the book is not available. So because whenever you create a book, you set is available, right? You set is available initially, correct? When that particular book is borrowed, the is available is set to false. So since it is set to false and it is going to return true initially, now the book is not available. The true is not available, so it is going to return false. When it return false, it so where is our if condition? Here it is our if condition. Book.borrow is going to return false. If it is false, it is going to the else part and it is going to print, sorry, the book is already borrowed. That's what we are seeing here. Guys, is it clear or it's confusing? Guys, any doubt with any of the method? How that particular method is working? Or we can go ahead.
Ma'am, can you please tell one more time?
Okay, which part you want me to explain, or from the start you want me to explain?
These methods, how they are called.
Okay. So let's now. So you understood how we are creating book and user using the class.
Yeah.
So this part is clear, right? And let's see one of the method borrow book. Okay. User one dot borrow book. Which class it is in? Which class is having borrow book? Okay. What is this? This is user one. What is this called? No, Arlen, it's not book. Okay. What is this? User one.
Object of
It's
the
an
user
object.
class.
Correct. Object of user class.
User class.
Correct, Maldi? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So if this object is calling some method, where that method will be?
In user.
In user. Correct. This is an if this is an object of user class, then only this class, whatever this class has method, those methods only this object can call. Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
So without looking at the code, the real code, you can tell just looking at this is a class, this is an object. If this object is calling particular method, that method belongs to this user. Clear? Clear, Arlene, why I said not book? The name might be confusing, but borrow book, you see, borrow book inside user. Okay. And what is the parameter I have to pass?
Book title.
Book. No, it's not title. Book has two things. One is title and author. But
Okay.
here I have not given any title or author, which means I'm going to pass the whole book.
Total.
Okay, whole book, which has, see here, whenever I pass it, I'm able to print the name, unable to print the title. So I have to pass the whole book. Whole book means nothing but the object. The object has both, right? The title and the author. So I'm going to pass the object itself as a parameter. The whole book. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
We have an option to do that also. So I'm going to pass the book. So here book one. Book one is one of my object. It has title and the author. So this user one is now borrowing book. Okay, book one. So let's go to this method, borrow book. So we have what we have inside this borrow book, if else condition, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And here, what are we doing? Book dot borrow. Where is this method?
Book class. In book class.
In book class, we have, so here you see object dot method. The object is nothing but what you're passing. Okay. Dot borrow. Here, what is we are passing? We are passing book one. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So here you are passing book one. Book one is this object, this particular object you are passing. So here it's nothing but when you get book one, this is nothing but book one. Correct?
Yeah.
This part you are clear. When you pass book one, this book is nothing but book one. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you pass book two, what will this be?
Book 2.
Hmm. So in sum, in for example, you have a method called sum, and inside that you are getting A and B. When you pass one to A, so let me create one simple method.
Yeah, come on.
I'm going to return A comma B. But when I call this, what I'll do? Sum of
You need to,
1 comma 2.
you
So here
need to
what is
call
this
it
A?
as 1.
1. Because you are passing 1 to this A and this A accepts 1 and now it becomes 1. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Similarly, what happens here? You're passing book 1. Correct? You're passing book 1 to the borrow book and borrow book. Yeah. This book 1 dot borrow. It is calling book 1 dot borrow. And if it is book 1 object, particular method will be inside book class only. Correct? Dot borrow. So we are calling this method. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
You are calling this method from the one of the method inside the class. So you're calling it and it's going to return you either true or false. That's why you have a if condition here. And if it is true, you're going to do this. If it is false, you're going to do this. So what you're going to do? Yeah, going to, if it is true, let's ignore what is there inside this. This we will see later. First, if it is going to return true, simple, true or false. If it is true, what you're going to do? Self dot borrowed books dot append. Self dot borrowed books is nothing but your attribute. Correct? One of the variable. Clear? This is borrow book. Method
Yes,
name is
ma'am.
borrow book, but here it is borrowed books. This is different. Okay. So you have a variable and you're going to add append. This is a list. You have created an empty list. So you're going to append. Append with what? The book. What is this book? Which is nothing but book one. So this particular list will have books inside it. When you borrow some book, you will be adding it. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what you're going to do, you're going to print self.name. Self.name is nothing but the username, borrowed, and book.title. Book is book one. And how do I get title? Here, self.title. So what is the title?
Python crash
Python
course.
crash course. So it is telling Bob borrowed Python crash course. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
1 minute. Okay. So if it is not available, it is going to tell sorry, the book title is already borrowed. Clear? This part is clear how this method is working.
Yes, ma'am.
But how it is understanding whether that book is already borrowed or not, that depends on this method. We will see that later. So now, again, we have another user 2. Okay, Alice. So this user 2 is doing borrow book. Where is this borrow book? Borrow book is here. And you're passing book 1. Book 1. It is calling book.borrow. This method is inside this class book. Correct? Borrow. And if it is returning true, it is going to print this. If it is returning false, that is going to print this. In our case, in the user 2 case, what it happened, it returned false. So it is printing this. Sorry, book title, the book title, what we are interested is book one. Book one dot title is this one, correct? The book title is already borrowed. Book one dot title. Book one dot title is nothing but Python crash course. Okay, it is telling book one dot title is already borrowed. So this is simple, right? If it is going to return true, this part will be printed. False, this part will be printed. Is this method clear? Borrow book method.
Yes, ma'am.
Now let me do one thing. I wanted to print this. I wanted to see what this particular user, what all he borrowed. Okay, I will give. So whenever I give print user one, okay, here is my user one. User one is nothing but Bob, and he has borrowed book one. Bob has borrowed book one. Okay, so when I give print user one, it will by default go and call this string class. Whenever you wanted to print anything about that user, this particular method will be called. So this method is only for the display purpose. Okay. So here, what is the print statement? User self dot name. What is self dot name and is going to tell me?
Alice.
Alice. Self dot name is nothing but user two dot name. We have passed Alice, correct? Sorry, if it is user two. Okay, let it be user one. User one is Bob. I'm not executing this. I'll execute it later. User one dot name. So self dot name is nothing but self is nothing but which object it calls. Right? So here it is user one. So self will be like user one dot name, and borrowed book is book dot title for all the book in self dot borrowed. Self dot borrowed is nothing but a list is created whenever he borrows a book. Whenever he borrows a book, that particular book is added to this list. Correct.
Okay, ma'am.
So this particular book is added to this list self dot borrowed, and what we are doing here for every book, because it is a loop, it is a list, it might have more than one book also. So I am using a loop for every book in this self dot borrowed in this list, print the book title. Okay, so here it will be user one. User one dot borrowed books. It's a list. So what I'll do, for every book in the user one dot borrowed book list, print me the book title. Mm, okay, actually this can be used only inside this print. Let me try book title is okay. Actually, it's not letting me to do it standalone. So yeah, here the idea is this is a list, and this might have multiple books, and for every book in this list, you are going to print only the title. Okay. So let me run this print.user one now. It is telling user Bob borrowed books. Inside the list, it has Python crash course. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll make this user one to borrow another book. I'll make him to borrow book two as well. Okay. Book two is nothing but clean code. Okay. Let me run this. So Bob borrowed clean code. And now let me print user one. So it is telling user Bob borrowed Python crash clean code, because whenever he borrowed a book, that particular book also again here I passed book 2, right? Now when I was calling user borrow user 1, user 1 borrow book 2. When I called just borrow book with book 2 parameter, borrow book, book 2. And here inside self dot borrowed, this is nothing but a list, self dot borrowed books. I'm appending book 2 as well. So it has now second book, book 2 also. That's why whenever I print this, it is able to print the clean code also because it's already added into the list and later we are printing the list. That's all. Here we are nothing but we are printing that particular list. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So are we clear how we are creating user, how we are creating book and how we are borrowing and how we are printing whenever you print something, how it is printing. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now when you borrow book, it is going to book.borrow. Let's go to that particular method and see what it does. Okay. This particular method is nothing but is returning you true or false. Okay. So that's why you have if condition. So let's go to that. Okay. Borrow here is nothing but borrow when you borrow book one dot borrow. Correct? Which is nothing but it's like calling.
Python cross.
Yeah. Book
Python
one
cross.
dot. It's like calling this directly, right? Book one dot borrow. Book one dot borrow. So what it is checking if it is available. Okay. If it is available. So whenever you created a book, it will be true only initially. Initially, all the books will have is available true. Okay. Initially, it will be true. Then you are borrowing. Correct. Now you're initially whenever a book is added to my shelf, it will be always is available true. Now since you are borrowing, I'm doing, I'm setting it false. Before I'm giving you that book, I'm having a variable and that variable I'm updating. Okay, I'm updating it to false because I have taken it from the shelf. Okay, I've taken it from the shelf and I made the is available to false and I'm telling return true. Return true is nothing but this particular method is returning true because I know this method will be called by some other method where I will just tell true or false. Return true is nothing but I am giving that book to the user. Okay, return true means I'm giving that book. If suppose, so now what I did first time when I removed it from the shelf, I made it to false. Correct? So now second time when I go to the shelf for the same book, Python Crash Course, will that book be available in the shelf?
No, ma'am.
No. So when I see the shelf, it's very clear. I will go and check. My eyes will see it's not available. So I'll tell it's not available. When it's handled by computer, when I first time I borrowed that book to you, I gave that book to you. Before giving that book to you, before telling return true, I made it false, correct? Because I know I am taking that book out of the shelf. So whenever I take it out, I'm making it false so that next time when I come and see, I can tell it's false. It's not available. So first time I made it false. So next time I will again come. Maybe user 2 will borrow the book when user 2 dot borrow book. User 2 borrow book and book 1. Borrow book is nothing but this one. Borrow book. You are telling book 1 Python crash course. This is calling book dot borrow. Nothing but this. Next time again it is calling. So this time I'm checking if self is available or not. It got updated to false previous time itself, correct? When I gave it for user 1. So this will tell if condition. This if condition, what it will tell? It will tell false. Because in the last scenario, we have already updated it to false. This part is clear. If it's not clear, let me know. I'll explain in a
It's
different way.
clear, ma'am.
Okay. So your last time itself, you made it false. So now when you call this if condition, it is going to give me false. Automatically, if it's false, it is going to return false. Correct?
Then
It's not
false.
going to, yeah, it is not going to execute this block. It is directly going to execute this block. Return false. It is giving false to this particular calling method. So this method, when I call this, I got false. False means I'll go to the else part, correct?
Else part. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm telling, sorry, the book is already borrowed. That's why when I try to borrow the same book by user 2, I'm trying where it is user 2. So yeah, user 2, I'm trying to borrow the same book. It is telling, sorry, Python crash course is already borrowed. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Rahul, is it clear for you?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. If it's not clear, please let me know. It's not just because Maldi understood, you have to understand. I can try in a different way if you do not understand.
No, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you.
It's clear, right? Sure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody, it's clear, Arlene Vidya, because this is kind of a little um I have created multiple method. I'm doing multiple things in one single page, so it might be confusing. So please be honest. If it's not clear, nobody is going to judge you. So Arlene, Vidya, Amit, is it clear for you guys? Okay. Now we successfully created a class to create a book, borrow a book, create a user, and that particular user will borrow and return the book. Okay. Now let's test this return book. So user book when already user one already what he borrowed. When I give print user one, it is telling he has borrowed Python crash and clean code. I wanted this particular user to return. This particular user is returning. I have to pass book detail, right? Return book. Let me copy this. User one dot return book, and he is going to return book one. Okay. So what will happen when this is executed? We will check whether that particular book is there in the self dot borrowed, which means we are going to check this particular list, right? Borrowed books, whether he really borrowed that particular book. We will check that, right? If it's there inside this list. If so, we will execute this part. Otherwise, we will tell that particular user is not having that book at all. Okay. So for example, to execute the negative scenario, I will create another book. So I'm creating another book called book 3. Okay. Book 3 got created. Now, when I print user 1, he's just having only 2 books, but I will make him to return user 1 to return book 3, which he is not borrowed at all. His list, his borrowed book list is not having book 3 at all. It is having only book 1 and book 2. But still, I'm trying this. Bob does not have latest train passenger. It is first when you try to return the book, it checks whether that particular book, here in case it is book 3, whether that book 3 is part of this book. No, it is not part of this self-borrowed books. So it is going to tell false. This particular if condition is going to tell false. False means it is going to come here and print this. Okay. If it all, if it is already there inside this book because you already borrowed, what it will do? It will uh, it is calling book dot return book. Okay, book dot return book. Book means nothing but object. Our here in our case, it will be like, for example, if I am giving book 2, so it will be book 2 dot return book. What is this book 2 is? What is this book 2?
Clean code.
Sorry? Yeah,
Clean
clean
code.
code. Yeah, that's fine. I want
Okay.
like class object in that way. I want to answer.
Uh,
Object.
Object of a book class.
Yeah. So if this object is calling some method, then where that method will be.
In the book class.
Hmm. Let me remove this. It is there inside the book class. Whenever you return some book, it is updating is available is equal to true. So initially Python crash course, when I first borrowed, I made it to false. So now it's still false only. For this Python crash course, it is false only. Now when I'm returning that particular book, I'm making it to true. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So what it does, when you return a book, it goes and update that particular book is returned, and later it is removing that particular book from the list because he returned it. So his list should be, that particular book should be removed. So both the work we did, and we are printing just for the user to understand. We are printing this. Okay, let me go and print. Okay, let me call this Bob returned clean code because I've written book 2. So he returned clean code. Okay. Now let me check. Clean code is available is now true, correct?
Yes, ma'am. True.
So it's now updated to true, right? And let's see. Why this list I'm not able to print? One dot. I'm doing something wrong here. I couldn't understand it now. Later I'll see. Okay. So now, if I wanted to see what is there inside this particular list, what I've created, I can just simply run this. So to run this uh, print, what I have to do, I just have to call print of user1. So it is telling user Bob borrowed books. And the whatever is there inside this list, it is going to print. So now only it has Python crash course. Initially it was having both the book, but since we returned, this particular second book got removed from this particular this list. In this list, you have removed the second book, whatever book he has removed. I mean, he returned. You are removing it here, correct? You are giving the book name and you are removing it here. So this is the updated one. Okay. Now, uh, so anything else you want to try? You want to borrow or return book? Anything you wanted to try now before we proceed? Guys,
Can
anything
we
you
try
wanted
to
to try?
borrow book three? Book three. Can we try to borrow book three?
For which user?
Um, User two, Alice.
Okay, user 2. To borrow book, I will go and check. This is the method name. And which book? Book 3, right? Book
Yes, ma'am.
3. So Alice borrowed this particular book. Okay. Now let me check all the parameters. Book 3 dot. What this particular parameter should tell me? Books 3 dot is available.
False.
Okay. And let me print user 2. It is telling Alice borrowed the third book 3. Clear?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I will now let the user 1 also to borrow the same book. But since it is available as false, if I try to borrow, this book.borrow is
Already
nothing
borrowed.
but your, yeah, it is going to return your is available. Based on that, you are going to return false true. So it will tell sorry, this particular line will be printed. So let's see that, okay. It is already borrowed. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we created a book class which handles all the everything, all the actions about book, and we created a user class which handles everything about the user. Now we will create a admin class, okay, admin user. So now we directly created user and book, right? But in the real library management, only admin can create the user and book, okay? Nobody else will have access to add a book or create a new user. He will be doing everything. So this particular admin is inherited from user. He is also a user. Okay. So he has, since it is inherited from user, you if you want to print everything about the admin, you can use this method str print admin, because admin is inherited from user. All the borrow book, return book, and this print everything is you can be used by the admin. Okay, and additionally he is having these two action. He can add a book, he can add user. Okay, so admin, when you create an admin, he can add a book, he can add user, and he can also return a book, borrow a book. He can borrow some book for himself, and you can also use this method. It will print what all the book he has borrowed. Clear why we are using inheritance? He is also behaving like a regular user, and apart from being a regular user, he has access to add book and add user. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
So that is why we are going for this inheritance. Inheritance, how we are telling inheritance, you are, while you are creating a class, you are giving passing another class name. Another class name is nothing but user. So you are inheriting user, so that you will have both the capability, your own capabilities apart from the user capability. Okay. Now let me run this. So I will create a admin. So I need not create admin 1 or 2. There might be only one admin in the library. I'm just directly giving admin. Admin I can give. I know. Okay. So admin is created. Now let's check. Okay. Before I cannot check this add book, add user. Why I cannot check this? This is going to return me some error. Now, if I try this, why? So here, when I go to this written book, I'm executing book dot written book. Where is this book? What is this book? If you answer this question, no, you can answer that question, admin question. What is this book here?
It's an objective.
It's an object of which class?
Book class.
Book class. So you're from, even though you are in the user, you're calling a book class. And there is a method inside it called a return book. Correct? Return book. That particular method you're calling here. Similarly, I'm doing library dot add book. What is this library? Because when you see a dot and you have a method name later, this is nothing but object, correct? Only you will have dot between object and method. This is a method, add book, and you're giving a parameter. This is an object. So library is an object. Where you're creating this library object from? I have actually another class in my code that I have not created now. So if I give this, it will not understand what is this library. So it is going to give me an error. So before I try this out, I will show what is the library class. So this is my library class, which has everything, which is going to add book, add user, and display book and find book. When you want to find some particular book based on the title, you can use this method. Okay. So this add book is a method to add a book to a library. Nothing but you are going to add a book to a shelf. Okay. So here, when you do when you create a book, you're just creating a book. You're creating a new book. A book, I mean, which means you are having a book in your hand. That is nothing but creating a book. A book has a title and the author detail. You're having a book and you're letting that book to borrow and return. But in your library, if you want to add that particular book to a library, you should have a separate class called a library. Here, I'm just adding a book and then I'm adding a user. Only admin will have access to this because only from admin we are doing library.addBook. Nobody else is doing that. So admin will add a book, admin will add a user. Here, just to understand that particular user method, like a user one written book, to understand how this is working, I have created like this bookvine dot on my own. But you cannot create like this. Only the admin will be having an access to add a book or add a user. When you call add user from the admin, it is going to call library.add user with a username. Okay. And you're going to tell which library it is. And here library.add user, we will go to library.add user, library, add user. It is having user.append. Users dot append, and you're going to pass the parameter. Where is this users? Okay, here it is a users is a list. Users is a list because that's why you have a self here. If it's an object dot method, you will not have self before object dot method. But here it is a variable. So you are telling self dot user and append. You are creating a user and you are adding a book to a list. We will continue this tomorrow because it's already time. So we will continue. We'll see what this class library does, what this admin does, and we will compile everything together one single code, and we will execute it from VS Code. Okay.
Okay, miss.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.